Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Friday edition of Moohead Radio. Another NFL season game, week 4, is right in our face, and we're going to be starting all over again, wondering how much the Browns are going to lose by this week. I'm your host, A Big, and maybe not as furry bovine. Joining me, my cast of favorite panelists. Not everybody is here technically, but some people are here. Bronk is not here, and of course, the latest spat between Derek Frisbee and myself. Derek has chosen, based on my prodding, maybe not to come here, but I did say to him that if he ever felt the need to come here, he's welcome. Because everybody who's ever been a panelist on this program is family as far as I'm concerned, even when they ask people to unsubscribe to my program. To be very honest with you, I don't have very many subscribers to begin with. Kind of like the Cleveland Plain Dealer, aren't I? At any rate, today we're going to be talking about the Browns and the Ravens and the lead into the game, the pregame analysis, the your analysis, and my analysis, of course, as well.
Then we're going to have some bagels and lox and
some schmear of cream cheese. Yeah, exactly. It's a schmear. And also, I'll be, welcome to the chat room if you're all watching and wanting to find out how much the Browns lose by this week. Let's start where we would start. Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams questionable versus Ravens. Here you come again.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to play.
Looking weaker than a secondary has a right to. And shaking me up so that all I really know. God, yeah. The Browns will be wrapped around the Ravens' little finger. No. All you got to do is smile that. No. And there go all my defenses. No. And just leave it up. No. Enough. She had big tits at one time, and I don't know what they are now. I don't want to know what they are. All right. I want to start the program before I just want to bring up the fact that Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams are questionable. We know what that means. And they're still talking about Rashard Higgins and his knee. So that doesn't look good. So we start out basically in the same place we started out last week. And that's with injuries. And we know that soft tissue injuries like hamstrings take a long time to heal. And I don't know. They're not telling me what in the hell Rashard Higgins did. It was his ankle, then it was his knee, then it was his elbow, his nose. For stunking the doctors, they're so confused. Yeah. So I don't know I don't know whether he's gonna play. I don't even know if but none of these guys practiced all week.
He probably has whatever the hell Kevin Durant had that ended up being a torn Achilles.
Yeah, I mean, God only knows. But none of these guys are going to really be able to play because they didn't practice all week. So I guess you can't cry about something that you don't have. I did want to point something out, though, before, we get into the whole football conversation. And this has to do with Fox Sports Ohio and Sports Time Ohio. They've been purchased, all right? And I do have knowledge of the broadcast industry, seeing as how I guess that's kind of where I came from. And I know how Brian feels about the press. You don't like the press, do you, Brian?
Not especially, no.
No. Well, here's some ultra bad news for you. Sports Time Ohio and Fox Sports Ohio have been purchased by Sinclair Broadcasting, the biggest right-wing Nazi media company in America. Now, doesn't that upset you, Brian?
Media company.
Doesn't that bother you, Brian, that Sinclair, a right-wing company, bought STO? and Fox Sports Ohio. Doesn't that upset you?
I thought they were part of the Disney deal.
Sinclair.
I thought they got all the ancillary stuff with Fox.
Massive Trump supporter, massive right-wing company. But you're not complaining about that.
Well, we have 7 companies controlling, what is it, 98% of the media? 7. That's it. So pick a goddamn poison.
He's not, yeah. The thing that's funny about it is Sinclair. I have experience with Sinclair, and they are a hoot.
Well, they're part of the Sinclair family, so, you know.
Sieg Heil, you give the salute when you talk about the Sinclair family.
Oh, well, you do a lot more than that.
Yeah, my goodness. I give double salutes.
They're up there with the Rothschilds and Payseurs. They're one of the ruling class.
Yeah, they've gotten bigger and bigger since, you know. Yeah, but at any rate, the thing is that it's being announced that they're going to be showing more political ads on STO and Fox Sports Ohio. So you know something? I don't feel so bad talking about politics now, because, you know, it has no place during a sports broadcast, and it really has no point in a sports talk podcast like this. But they force me to do it, because the truth of the matter is that, you know, Tony the Calf was asking if anywhere in Minneapolis, if there was any bars that would want to host a Trump victory party. And I said, yes, the Ukrainian one down the street. I'm going to keep rubbing it in, folks. Your president is a whore. He's a thief and a whore. He's a guy.
Yeah, and Joe Biden is a fucking criminal. So
Joe Biden's old and senile. Joe Biden's old and senile. He's not even going to
Hunter Biden's just as much of a fucking criminal, and he's not old and senile.
Yes, he is. He's not going to win.
And he's a fucking, and he fucked over his fucking wife's, his husband's or brother's widow.
Don't try to sugarcoat it. Tell it like it is.
He's a fucktard from a family of fucking fucktards who are all Democrats, and they're all fucking treasonous pieces of shit.
Even though his son served in the military. Now we
have it all covered.
Yeah.
As long as you vote for Democrats, you love treasonous pieces of shit who love child trafficking and raping little boys and girls. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that what you want to support?
Yeah, pedophiles and rapists
out there
are Democrats.
and vote for the real Nazis. Vote for the real fascists. Elizabeth Warren, she wants to take over all goddamn business. Oh, what is that?
I voted for Elizabeth Taylor, and she's been dead for ages. I don't know. Although her body still is not decomposed. That's the amazing thing about Liz. Liz just goes on. I mean, she could become an eternal snack for worms. I just wanted to show you that it doesn't really matter. You can't put a dent in a Trumper, because if it's liberals who are breaking in to Mr. Trump's press conferences, which is a wrong thing to do. Absolute wrong thing to do. You don't do that. CNBC should be ashamed of themselves. You let the president of the United States speak, and you don't interrupt in the middle and turn off what he's saying to say he's a liar. You know, you wait until afterwards if you have an editorial comment. I don't like the way any of this is working out, but the fact of the matter is that it isn't just liberal media. It's both, and it's invading every facet of our lives. It's really too bad, you know?
Yeah, Jay, like you could even get into fucking Wharton's, you asshole.
I don't even know what he's referring to.
Amsterdam.
Right? Oh, Amsterdam's irritating him too. All right. Me like it. So at any rate, I thought I'd get off to a start on the program by irritating Brian, because Derek's not here. Okay.
Like I said, somebody's got to carry the fucking banner.
Yeah. Well, that's what they said in Germany. I mean, you know, somebody had to pull the lever and gas the people. That's the important thing. You got to find the right people who are the.
Yeah, but I'm not the fucking socialist.
No,
I don't vote for socialism. National Socialist German Workers' Party. That's what a fucking Nazi really is.
No, they were
National
murderers.
Socialist.
They were murderers. There's a big difference. Socialists might be dangerous in an economic sense, but they were murderers. Big difference. But it was a matter of conscience, you know. What's the difference between going like this and going like this to pull the lever down?
Yeah, and Lenin came up with Union of Soviet Socialist Republics.
No, Lenin came up with Strawberry Fields Forever, and it's a classic. It's timeless. All right. I'm not going to argue this out. I mean, the fact of the matter is, you know, it's like, you know.
The fact of the matter is that the leftists have killed more than 100 million people in the 20th century.
Yeah, and raped all their children, I know. Freddie Kitchens talking about his defense. He decided he was going to talk about his defense in his press conference because somebody mentioned the word offense, and he went, yeah. Opening statement. I think we had a good week of preparation. The attention to detail. Yeah, exactly. The attention to detail picked up a lot this week. Not that it was not that way before, but our scout team gave a terrific look this week. That's what we're. Well, then he proceeds. Then he says Chris Hubbard looked better and moved around better. That's how he moves around, seeing who goes by him and how fast. They actually put a stopwatch on the guy who's rushing around Chris Hubbard to see how fast they get around that fucking tub of goo. On the difference about Rashard Higgins making a difference when he's available on offense. Well, he's played a lot of football around here over the past 4 years. Anytime you do away with an experienced guy who has made plays, of course, it makes a difference. But we have other guys that can play as well. Okay. That means he's not playing. Has Freddie been pleased with Damian Ratley's performance? I have. I've been really happy with Damian. But then I have to say that because of the 666 that's tattooed on his arm. Damian, you see, is the devil. Damian! Oh, God. Who could be pleased with Damian Ratley? What has he done? I mean, and his last name is too rodential. You know, I don't feel good about it.
Keeps mumbling red rum, red rum.
Exactly. If he feels good about this week's game plan and putting the Browns in better situations, I think we try to do that every week.
Red wine.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't get suspended. That's a start.
I mean, I'm just sitting here saying, if we tried to put our players in the better situations every week, then we have problems. I do want to say something, though, and I should have started out the program with this instead of irritating Brian, because, you know, there are some things that I want to show how flexible a human being I am. And I want to admit that I was wrong about something, because sometimes
he's going to dance in his chair again.
By God, I do get things wrong. The final 4 plays, those 4 plays inside the 5-yard line, which the Browns didn't score, I put directly on the shoulders of Freddie Kitchens, because not a single running play was run. If you remember, my rant about that had to do with his insistence in doing things his way and being inflexible. Well, when game film came out and showed those final 4 plays, Baker Mayfield missed 2 very open receivers. And on the 3rd play, if he had scrambled up the middle, would have walked into the end zone. So what we have here.
By the way, Packers did the exact same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what we have here is a failure to communicate. All right. That's right, Rick?
Yep. Paul Newman, HUD, I believe.
No. Guess again.
Started with an H, I believe.
No, HUD was one of his movies, but not that one.
Thought Paul Newman was in that one. Maybe
He was. He was in HUD with Patricia Neal. But what was the movie with George Kennedy?
Trying to remember all the H movies.
Cool Hand Luke.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the soft-boiled eggs and everything.
Yeah, failure to communicate. Well, and
The
obviously,
milk challenge was even funnier.
I'll tell you something else. Baker Mayfield is not comfortable in this offense, obviously. In the two plays where he looked away from OBJ was being single covered. It seems almost impossible that he wouldn't recognize that, except he's having difficulty recognizing the zone and the man coverages. And this is what D coordinators are doing to confuse Baker, is to give looks that really look like they're man when they're zone, and it's throwing his timing off. So what's happening is a man appears to be covering another receiver and then goes off onto the other one, and the amount of time that Baker has to throw being diminished, he's throwing into coverage far too much. But he was locked in on Jarvis Landry on the two plays. One play, Jarvis Landry actually was open, but he threw the ball to Demetrius Harris. And the other two plays, he looked specifically away from OBJ, and OBJ was cutting open in the back of the end zone on one. And then, like I said, in the other one, he went back to throw, and the middle parted like the Red Sea, and he instead just got a ball deflected. And, the ball that was deflected, by the way, was heading in the right direction, but it was batted down because the angle of trajectory of the throw was not there. The third down play that happened on, Mayfield told a teammate that he was going to lose a lot of sleep over that he knew that he'd fucked up. So I don't want to lay it all on Freddie's plate when it's not all Freddie who is doing this. It takes a team to fail. And the plays themselves, for whatever reason, I'm not going to say anybody was wide open. I'm watching the Chiefs offense and watching Mahomes throw against the Ravens last week, and men were open. We haven't seen guys open like that. And this is the first time that I've seen Baker not pick up on an offense. And it concerns me because he picked up on the other one real quick. And we're going to find out, because you know that the Ravens defense, they're running blitzes 47% of the time, folks. 47% of the time they're blitzing, and they have the most quarterback pressures in the league. They are the most effective in forcing quarterbacks to get rid of the ball in under 2.5 seconds. And if you remember, the average of 2.6 of Baker's last year, and these Ravens get to the quarterback much faster than that.
Okay, jumping back to last year, the reason that they had some success with running different plays, especially J.C. Treader with running plays, it was his play that was the 92-yard touchdown run for Nick Chubb. He was going to each individual. He pared down the playbook to just what guys felt the most comfortable with. I don't think that's happening this year. I think you have too many chefs in the kitchen spoiling the broth.
Well, today's press conference would refute that. All right. I'll read. There was a specific comment made, and they asked him, they said, last year you were actually going over with the players what plays they were more comfortable running and looking at the film. And he said, we are still doing that. Mm-hmm. So again, it's all reason for me to be concerned about the offensive scheme, because if this is what they're comfortable doing, I would hate to think what it looks like when they're not comfortable. And, this notion that teams are forcing Baker to scramble to the right would not even be a point if Baker had more time in the pocket. But Baker has lost his confidence in the pocket, and he is running away from where the outside rush is coming from, the outside, the left side of the line. teams are lining up guys wide and bringing them in, and it's forcing him to the right because he's not stepping up into the pocket because everything is collapsing. It's a difficult situation to try to figure out what's going on with the Browns, but there's a bunch of things to be worried about this week because Baltimore's a hard place to play in. That's one thing. 2, their defense is very, very, very stout. 3, their secondary is the greatest weakness of the team, and that was exploited by the Chiefs. But the Chiefs are really on point, having run that offense for a couple of years now. To put it into perspective, and I think Cleveland.com in their great deep analysis said the Browns have to throw it deep, that Beckham and Landry have huge advantages against their secondary. But so far, there hasn't been time for these fellas to get down the field for Baker Mayfield. So just saying throw the ball deep doesn't really, that doesn't tell anybody anything. Baltimore's given up over 700 yards through the air in this past 2 games. So they're yielding yardage, all right? Its secondary graded at a 56.8 overall against the Cardinals and 48.3 versus Kansas City. Jimmy Smith is injured, who missed week 3 due to an injury. Marlon Humphrey's questionable status this week for week 4. Their secondary is dinged up and not as talented as it has been in the past.
The biggest concern is still their defensive line.
Well, the biggest statistical problem for the Ravens is their secondary. Look at it this way. The Ravens are surrendering a big play on 12% of defensive snaps. The league worst is 17%, and that's Oakland. The rush defense is the 3rd best, allowing just 60 yards per game. The Ravens have only given up 4 runs of 10 or more yards. You're going to have to throw to beat them. The likelihood is you're going to have to, again, endanger your quarterback by throwing a lot more than you run. Baltimore has allowed 14 pass plays of 10 or more yards. Compare that to 4 runs of 10 or more yards. And any play greater than 10 statistically is considered an explosive play. And they're giving up a bucket full of those as well. But the Browns' offense seems to be predicated on getting 4 guys down the field and breaking patterns off, and there isn't much chemistry between the receivers and the quarterback. But the middle of the field has not been open. So it's a conundrum. For me, anyway, looking at this to try to figure out what the story is, I don't know. They have to hit quick hitting patterns because there isn't time in the pocket, and then they have to depend on yards after catch. That means people are going to have to win their one-on-ones. The fact is that the reason that we couldn't score from inside the 5 was because Jarvis Landry couldn't win his man-to-man battle. You look at those 4 plays, and it was not zone, it was man-to-man. And Landry couldn't win. OBJ won.
Except on the very first play where he was running across the goal line. Right. And the ball skipped through Thomas's hands.
Right. And throwing it to Thomas there was the wrong, the Demetrius Harris, was throwing it to the wrong guy.
Tight end number 8,874 on the depth chart.
Who can't block, that's right. The play that you saw, the 89-yard touchdown pass, is the kind of play, and it isn't going to be from throwing a bomb in the air. It's going to come down to hitting a man in stride in the middle of the field and having separation speed. And hence the problem with Jarvis Landry. is that he's a possession receiver. He's not a breakaway
Yeah, but remember
threat.
he had a 30-yard touchdown play last year against in game 16.
Most of the time when he catches the ball downfield, my experience is his hands go up and get the ball, and it isn't that he outruns anybody. He positions himself and has really good hands. The problem for the Browns is that I don't see Damian Ratley beating anyone deep, and the Ravens are aware of their shortcomings, and they're not going to let OBJ beat them. So if they see that Jarvis Landry is not able to win man-to-man coverages, that's going to hurt the Cleveland Browns, and it's going to allow them to double team OBJ and not have to pay a price someplace else. And it certainly doesn't look like Higgins is arriving soon. We have to wait for Callaway, and who knows what shape he is in, and he at least has vertical speed.
And Penguin Clippers.
Yeah, it's and if we have to win throwing to tight ends, again, the Ravens are going to say, God, if Seals, Jones, Demetrius Harris, or Pharaoh Brown are going to beat us, bring it on. I don't think they're peeing their pants at the prospect. And Njoku, who's a guy who could actually get downfield, is gone. So, it's and even in their game against the Cardinals, Murray, a rookie quarterback, looked good. The only thing in the end that got Baltimore out of that situation was sheer pressure they put on Kyle Murray. So, crossing patterns.
Well, and their red zone defense, they let them get so close, and then once they got inside the red zone, they couldn't make any touchdowns.
The Ravens are not giving up, with the exception of the Chiefs. I mean, let's face it, the Chiefs are the class of the conference. But where there is limited space, they do a great job of dropping their backers, and their defensive line wins. And so you can't run it in. And when you try to throw, it's like throwing into mainland China. It's so crowded that you can't find openings. And with Njoku being gone, the fade pattern has disappeared like a fart in the wind. Slot receivers have been hurting the Ravens. Larry Fitzgerald, who is 97 years old, caught 5 passes for 104 yards. They were all from the slot. The Ravens cornerbacks, Averett and Cyrus Jones, they grade out at a 38 and a 54, respectively. The starting corner, Brandon Carr, he's 76.3 out of 100. So if Smith is gone again this week, you would think that Landry and Beckham have to line up to some degree against Averett and Cyrus Jones, and they have to be able to beat these guys. Most of the predictions in this game, folks, are predicting a higher scoring game, believe it or not, despite the fact that the Browns are averaging a meager 16 points per game. The over-under on this game is 45.5. And most of the predictions are picking, in fact, every prediction, with the exception of Cleveland.com that I can find, is picking the Ravens to win, but in like 34-27 kind of fashion. So let's go, now that I've given you some of the basic information. Rick, you'll start. What hope do you see in this game? What is it that the Browns can exploit? And what is it that terrifies you?
Well, if the Browns can exploit the defense and, use the entire field to get to the ball to the receivers, because as soon as Baker runs to the right, you've lost half the field. And if you had any receivers heading to the left, you're going to need a telescope to try and find them. And they have to incorporate, despite whatever the defense does, they have to incorporate Nick Chubb in the running game. They've got to get him off the line of scrimmage, and they got to get him some yardage.
Can I ask you something? And you bring up a point about this rolling out to the right thing. Why aren't we rolling out to the right and throwing back out to the left and setting up screens if they're running men in from that side of the field?
You're bordering on logic there, so it would make sense, wouldn't it?
You would think that if you were running, like, it's all influence blocking, right?
Right.
And
just
so
pull everybody over, and then just float one over to Chow on the left side, give him a couple of blocks, and just turn them loose. See what happens.
And what you would have to do to make that work is you need people in the backfield. Because, yeah, I know. Yeah, but just naked booting out to the right, there's not going to be, and if you send too many men back out to the left, then there's going to crowd that whole area. But it seems to me if everybody is running toward the right and there should be an opening on the left, and all you need is that first block, and there should be some open field. There should be some opportunities to do that. So
in a perfect world.
Well, again, it's a oversimplified vision, maybe. Jake, what is our hope? What is your fear?
Well, obviously protecting Baker is a big key to the game. And I do think that Baker scrambling for them is not the worst thing right now, because last week the pressure was coming up the middle and Mahomes just snuck out, waited a couple seconds, and the receiver snuck behind the defense. And their defense can be exploited in that way. It's just, can we give Baker enough time for the receivers to get downfield and break the defensive backs in that scramble? Because Kyler hurt them, and also Mahomes, more mobile guys, are hurting them with that exact strategy.
But, what I see, though, in the receivers for those two teams that you mentioned is that they're coming back to the quarterback. I don't see anybody coming back, or any of the receivers really bailing Baker out either. And it's been a problem with the Browns for a long time that they run their patterns and they quit. And, last year we finally saw hope of when plays were extended by Baker, he would find men open down the field. But this year it's not happening. And it's almost as if he's not seeing something, or, but I've not seen any game footage, replays, or any of it that would suggest to me that while he was scrambling, that anybody was waving their hands wide open down the field.
Well, even when he scrambled last year, it was a read he had to make, and he decided to go left or right. Even like on that huge pass he had last year to Landry, he rolled out right, then left. He let the play make it. Last week, he was just running right before the ball was even snapped. So I think they're going to predict that this week, because he seems to just be content getting out of the pocket right away. He's not even trying to stay in there anymore.
Yeah, that's where business is done in the NFL. Brian, what is your hope? What is your fear?
My hope is that the defense can corral their offense and not allow more than 19 points to really give this Browns offense a chance to actually try to do something in the game. My fear is their defensive line is going to be too disruptive on the replacements, and Baker's not going to have the time to really find anybody who is flying down the field wide open.
My hope in this game, and it's the only hope you can have, is that the Browns' vertical game suddenly starts clicking for whatever reason, because they're going to need to throw the football to win. But my single greatest fear is Lamar Jackson. There's nobody that can spy on this guy. And even in the games in which the Ravens have given up more points, Lamar Jackson has been one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the conference. And he's doing it by, what it's almost like watching? It was like watching the Atlanta Braves pitching staff back when Glavine and Maddox And you're not looking at guys who threw 98 miles an hour. They weren't Nolan Ryan. Yes, Smoltz. They were guys who just played within themselves, pitched within themselves, spotted the ball. And Lamar Jackson has shown a lot more poise and not wanting to bite off more than he can chew. He has been very efficient. He is throwing to Baker's former tight end, Andrews from Oklahoma.
The Andrews sisters.
Yeah, but this guy's good. This guy's chewing.
It's Max and not Maxine.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's chewing everybody up. And teams know it's coming and can't stop it. And part of the reason why is if that first read doesn't have that separation, he is going to take off. First, he'll avoid any blitzes or pass rush. I mean, I don't care if Myles Garrett gets through or what the hell happens. You're not going to outrun Lamar Jackson. At the very best, you can get him to throw the ball away. But once he gets the corner, it turns into a punt return. And he made teams look foolish trying to tackle him in the open field. And I don't even want to think of what the Browns secondary and linebackers will look like trying to take this guy down. You know, this is a situation where you have to contain, not let him get the corner. And it's hard to do because if you do that, then you have to get pressure up the middle on him and you have to keep him in the pocket. And it is something that nobody's been able to do yet against this guy. And he is a broken field runner. And from what I've seen, I mean, based on some of the punt returners that we've seen in the past, he may be the best open field runner in the NFL. He doesn't play a position where he technically is supposed to do that, except in this scheme, this is encouraged. And nobody's getting a clean lick on him. They're whiffing. They're missing. He's spinning and darting and juking and jiving, and nobody's hitting him. And that is my single greatest fear, is that you can do everything you're supposed to do. Stay with the receivers, not give up that open look downfield. You can put pressure on him, and he's still 20 yards downfield with a big play with his legs. This has been happening all season long. And the throws that he has had to make, he's made. He has Marquise Brown, who can get down the field. So you have to, you know, he's a rookie, but you got to stay honest with him. And then that open middle of the field with his possession receivers, he moves the flags, the chains, and he's getting first downs, time of possession, and they are also able to run the football, and they use clock. It is a very, even the Chiefs had trouble beating them. In Kansas City, the Chiefs look powerless to stop Lamar Jackson. Every team that they have played has been powerless in stopping him. And our backup secondary and our pass rush, I don't know. That's the scary part of it for me. So
I think they're going to run pretty much the same style of defense that they had against the Rams, where it was stop the run first.
But the problem is their best running back handles the ball on every play. That's the
Lamar
problem.
can pull it. Yeah, Lamar can pull it if he sees that and take it to the outside where he has space on the opposite hash. So you can't just rush the line like that. You have to be prepared because he'll pull it at any point and get open.
Yeah,
but they were covering the outside gaps.
Yeah, that doesn't work when you
outside
have
the 9 technique.
But yeah, Lamar's speed is something. He's a real threat when he pulls it. So it's going to be a scary thing. You don't want to trust your DN to have to contain Lamar.
But you have to. In the end, he is still fast enough, even when pressured, to get the corner. We're talking about a 4.240 guy here. We're talking about, a bigger, faster Eric Metcalf. Once he's in the open field, he's there to make people miss. Now, this is great until he gets hurt, and he will. In his career, he will get hurt playing this way. But the problem is it doesn't help me or you on Sunday. I mean, as long as he's healthy, this is an absolute scary proposition. Meanwhile, the Browns are trying to convince everyone by saying that Odell Beckham has been in single coverage more times than you think. So says Todd Monken, the quiet one. Odell is saying, no, I'm being doubled all the time. And Monken saying, no, he's single teamed more often than you think. In any event, he's not being found, whatever the situation is. And Monken was right in the 4 plays inside the 5. 2 of them, he was single covered and was not targeted. So the last time the Ravens played him mano a mano was in 2016. And OBJ had 222 receiving yards. So they're not going to do that again. Nobody's going to allow that one guy to beat him.
Aren't the Ravens pretty well near the top 2 in time of possession? Like somewhere between 35 to 38 minutes a game? Hard to score when you ain't got the ball.
If you throw the ball to your tight ends over the middle of the field and run successfully, and your quarterback runs successfully, then you're going to hold on to the ball for a long fucking period of time. And the Browns, for their part, the only thing the Browns can do to prepare for this game is by letting, my goodness, guys pretend that they're Lamar Jackson, but we don't have anybody. Kadarrell Hodge was pretending. He played quarterback at Alcorn State. And believe me, the Browns ain't going to see nothing like Lamar Jackson until Lamar Jackson hits the field and they hit the field with him. I don't think any team so far has an understanding of just how fast this guy is. The theory in how to beat him was make him throw the ball, but nobody is able to make him throw it. And he's throwing the ball with enough accuracy, and his receivers in the scheme.
And he's getting all of these lucky shit fucking throws from who the hell knows where. All the way running to the one sideline and then throwing to the opposite sideline 40 yards down the field, and Willie Snead somehow comes up with the fucking football.
He had 2 of
How
those.
the hell do you fucking defend that?
He had 2 of those, but it's not like every throw he's doing is a lucky down the field.
No, but I mean that's how they're getting their chunk plays is all these loopy bullshit, pull it out of your ass.
Think of it this
miracle
way.
Throws.
Brian, think of it this way. How many situations have they really been in ultimate 3rd and long where they needed something? There was one magnificent throw that he threw. I think it was against your Cardinals, Brian. I want to say that it was maybe to Marquise Brown or to one of his other receivers right on the sideline. He put it right in the basket. He put the biscuit in the basket. It was a magnificent throw. Now, is he going to make that throw all the time? I'd be the first one to tell you that things are going their way. But there isn't enough of a sample size of him needing 3rd and longs because they don't get penalized that much. He's not in 3rd and longs. When he goes back to throw and doesn't have anyone open, it's not hard for him to get 7 to 9 yards on his feet to get it back to a 3rd and manageable. Saying that he's getting lucky on a few plays, but he's not forced into that position over and over and over again. So I guess the way I look at it is what he's really doing is throwing high completions to his tight ends over the middle of the field and running clock, and then kind of surprising people with some big plays, and some of them have been fortunate big plays. But I don't think that that's the sole reason that the Ravens are winning football games. I think the reason they're winning football games for the most part is that teams that give up the ball to them have to wait forever to get it back. And if the Browns are going to be back into Freddie's, drop back, throw 3 times, no time run off the clock, our defense is going to end up with emphysema on the field. They're going to be exhausted. So that's really how they beat you. But yeah, so far, they've made some big plays this year. But what they've done more than anything else is they have controlled the football. And, somebody else talk. I want to look up something to support this point of view. Anyone just jump in with your analysis and give me a minute to look something up, because I really feel that there is something here that needs to be expressed. Go ahead.
Jake, the floor is yours.
Rick, you've been quiet.
Oh, dear. Well, we've been talking about Lamar and Baker and everybody else, and I think we're forgetting the elephant in the room. Mark Ingram could kick our sorry ass on Sunday. We'll be so busy balling up Lamar. Mark Ingram will run for $120, and we'll lose like by 10 or 14 points. We better concentrate on Ingram as well.
That's why I said they'll probably have a replay of the Rams style of defense where they shut down the running lanes first and then try to make up the passing game in the back end.
Can I just say that there's going to be an ass raping on Sunday?
Okay, the show's official now. We've got our phrase in. Thank you.
So, Rox, who are you inviting over for that?
I'm going to watch that on television.
How many cameras this time?
I mean, let me. I'm here with the team statistics. I mean, total first downs. The Ravens have 86 this year. Their opponents 54. I want you to just listen to these numbers. Third down conversions, they're 19 of 38. Their opponents 10 of 30. So that's a 17% greater than their opponents. Their fourth down conversions are 5 out of 7. They've outgained their opponents in total offensive yards, 1,535 to 1,052. The plays and average yards per play, their average yards per play are 6.9. Their opponents are 6.4. That's not how they're beating people. That time of possession and that average of 6.9, they methodically move the ball down the field. The rushing plays, 111 to their opponent's 48. Averaging 5.9 yards per carry, predominantly because of Lamar Jackson. Total passing yards, 885 for the Ravens this year, 871 for their opponents. So basically even in that regard. Passing completions, the Ravens at 69 out of 106 attempts. Their opponent, 67 over 109. So, I mean, just very comparable. Touchdowns, the Ravens effective in the red zone with 14 to their opponent's 6. And here's the big one, time of possession, 36 minutes and 49 seconds for the Ravens, 23 minutes and 10 seconds for their opponent. Now, you tell me. I mean, we are in a situation here where it's obvious they're not beating you over the head with big plays. So a few lucky big plays aren't the real reason why the Ravens are winning this year. They're holding on to the ball so much longer that 6.9 average yards per play becomes cumulative. And as teams fall behind them, they have to pass. That means they give up the ball sooner. and the Ravens get it back and do the same thing, rinse and repeat, over and over again.
They hang
Lamar
on to the
Jackson.
ball. We end up losing the running game because we have to give it up because we have to pass to keep up with them because we only have just a short amount of time on the clock to do something.
That's right. I mean, it becomes very hard to overcome. Here's the real problem in another way of looking at it, folks. Mark Ingram is rushing for an average of 6 yards per carry with a long of 49. And you say 6 yards a carry, 43 carries for 257 yards. He's having a great year. Lamar Jackson averages 6.4 yards per carry. 27 attempts for 172 yards with a long of 19. Gus Edwards is averaging 4.4 yards per carry. So you're looking at a team that statistically runs the football and gets chunks of yardage running the football. So they don't live and die by the long pass. They grind you to death. Squeeze the life out of you that way. The receivers, Mark Andrews, we talked about him. 19 receptions for an average of 12.4 yards per. He's your possession guy, 235 yards on the season. 2 touchdowns, a red zone target. Marquise Brown is averaging 20.1 yards per reception. He's the speed. He's the lightning in the bottle. Then you have a bunch of guys, Nick Boyle, Willie Snead, who are contributing. And Willie Snead has 6 catches for 93 yards. Nick Boyle, 8 receptions for 98 yards. But Marquise Brown is the guy that they will lull you into getting downfield. And Mark Andrews is the guy who they will go to in every important situation to get the important third down. If you're in a 3rd and 7 situation or a 3rd and 5, they're going to go to Mark Andrews with the ball. Or they're going to go to Mark Andrews and you follow him, and then Lamar Jackson runs out of the pocket and gets the first down. That's what they're doing. Get this, Justin Tucker has kicked 1, 2, 5, 8, 10 field goals, attempts this year. All right. Their punter averages 48.3 yards per punt, instant field position for the Ravens. This is how they win. So, they don't have a big kick returner. Nobody seems to anymore anyway. So these are the statistical things. 36.7 points, first in the league, but then that's because of the Miami Dolphins thing. 511 yards per game, first. 295 passing yards, 7th. And 216 rushing yards per game. That's number 1 in the league.
It's also a big thing to look into that Kitchens, if this team does hold the ball for a while, he doesn't seem to be the most patient coordinator or play caller. So he could really jack up the game if he just decides to go quick play action, throw it deep the second he gets the ball back after a long possession. He seems like a guy that'll just try to tear it up quick and get the energy back, because I don't really trust him to get a game plan to manage the defense. He might not take that into account, that they could be fatigued.
Now, ESPN, Trotter and Hensley, these are the picks. Trotter says Ravens 31-27. Hensley says Ravens 28, Browns 27. I'm bringing these things up not because they are deities as far as picking games. Sport.
Did he
Zing,
freeze
bro.
up?
Time for us to run amok. He's frozen.
Come on.
Running amok.
CBS Sports. Okay.
You were
There you go.
frozen.
Yeah. 23-20 is what CBS Sports is picking. And I'll ask in a minute what the hell you were talking about. And there's a 63.6% chance, according to Fox Sports, that Trump will win. No, that Baltimore will win the football game. And, you know, Fox is going into picking a prediction of 24, but basically 24.7 to 19.2. They're picking that as, you know, basically like a 24-20 football game. So I can't find anybody who's picking the Cleveland Browns to win this football.
It happened again.
Yeah, something bad is going on here. You keep freezing, Mr. Moohead.
Really?
Yeah. Twice so far.
Really?
You are unfrozen now. We hear you now.
But
and we see you.
So the thing is, though, that it will come out on the YouTube video, won't it? Or maybe it won't. So you couldn't hear anything I was saying.
You're locking up on the YouTube video as well.
Yeah.
Boy, that's unusual.
One of these squares is not like the other.
Yeah, because it's not a signal issue. I don't know. Maybe I got something blocking something. Maybe something is getting in the router's way. I don't know. But it has been doing that a few times here on Zoom, hasn't it? I'm the one who's originating this broadcast. So, but you guys are not being affected by it.
Not as far as I
we
know.
can be.
Would anybody notice if I were frozen?
Cryogenically, yes. All right. So with all this in mind, we picked the games, and Brian, you're going first. What's your score?
I got the unfortunately I'm picking the Ravens to win 19-16.
All right, Rick.
Everybody's talking about Lamar and Baker, but I say it's going to be Mark Ingram. Ravens 28-17.
Rox, you get to pick.
I am going to pick the Browns 20-7 over the Ravens.
Boy, that's really scary, isn't it? Jake?
Ravens 24-13.
All right. And my pick in this game is the Ravens are going to crush the Browns 31. We'll give the Browns, to be nice, 17 points. But I really just don't see how right now this gets done. And what has to happen for a team like the Ravens is Lamar Jackson has to get shook up. Somebody has to put the fear of God in him. Because right now, he's footloose and fancy free. He's just loose as a goose out there. Somebody's going to have to pop him. And I don't mean late or anything like that, but I mean in the regular scope of a football game, somebody's going to have to get a frontal shot on him that is going to make him remember that he's playing football and he's not tiptoeing through the tulips. And it's going to take a lot. So I'm just...
Well, maybe Garrett can give him a hit as long as he remembers to bring his checkbook with him.
And by the way, the two Cleveland.com guys picked the Browns to win. So.
Yeah.
What did Mary Kay Cabot pick?
She wasn't in the video.
Her nose. She was picking her nose. So
Dan Lobby and some other gentleman did the picks. She wasn't even in this last video.
She was filming the ass raping in the locker room.
Yeah.
Now, I want to end the show on this note. And these are the things that make me shake my big cow head. Headline from Bleacher Report. The Brooklyn Nets' Kyrie Irving, quote, "I failed as a leader during my time in Boston."
Yeah, I saw that and I wanted to.
No.
No, but listen to this. You want to talk about excuse bullshit. Brooklyn Nets point guard Kyrie Irving said Friday he didn't take the proper recovery path after the death of his grandfather last year, and it led him to struggle as the leader of the Celtics. "I didn't take the necessary steps to get counseling or therapy," Irving said. "In terms of being a leader in that environment in Boston, I failed." This is a new game that we're playing. It's called Blame the Corpse. Kyrie Irving wasn't a leader in Cleveland. He's not a leader, period. Kyrie Irving and his stupid father, Drederick, should just go to hell, the both of them. The fact of the matter is he was all talk about what a great city Boston was and how he was finally getting out of Cleveland, and he fucked it up there too, as he fucks it up everywhere because he's a me first guy and his grandfather didn't mean a goddamn thing to him. He just wanted fame. He wanted that leadership role to fall onto his shoulders, and LeBron wasn't going to give it up because he couldn't carry the weight. And he had a perfectly fine Boston team that had gone deep into the playoffs, that he could be the shining thing to bring them all over the top, and he made everybody worse. There isn't a player on that team who was better with Kyrie Irving on the floor. Gordon Hayward, they can blame his injury all they want. He wasn't getting looks on the floor. Tatum, that great rookie in his second year, his shooting percentage went to hell. Nobody could get their hands on the fucking ball because Kyrie wanted to dribble between his legs and Uncle Drew people to death. And all he did to death was got his first one-way ticket out of Boston. In Brooklyn, the reason he's in Brooklyn, not because the Nets are going to win anything, but the New York press is there to report on every ignorant thing that he says, like blaming his dead grandfather for his inability to lead a professional basketball team. Kyrie Irving is destined to be Allen Iverson. The guy who don't like practice, the guy who was in it for individual accomplishments, who will always be remembered for making a shot and stepping over a guy who was prone on the floor. That's what he'll be remembered for, is broken ankles, guys who get faked out by his little dribbling rat-a-tat-tat game. But they won't remember him as the reason that any organization got better. And yes, he made an important three-point shot for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But please, don't mistake the fact that he was here long before LeBron came back and couldn't do shit with this organization and quit and became mum and became silent and sullen. And even in our his final playoff appearances in Cleveland, shut his teammates out by going glum, silent, and depressed. When he has to carry the weight on his shoulders aren't big enough. And with that in mind, with ESPN declaring now that Giannis is the best player in the NBA and that Kawhi Leonard is the second best player in the NBA, I want to remind everybody that with fewer minutes, LeBron maintained his statistics last year, and it's not LeBron's fault that his body is finally caving in, and everybody has to turn it over eventually, the throne, but not to Giannis. No, Giannis has not done anything. He choked in the playoffs when he gets there. He's not able to handle the double team and the physical style of defense that the officials allow in the finals of the NBA. Let's talk about great by talking about people who made others great around them. Let's talk about Michael Jordan, who turned some teams into that look like into championship teams. Let's talk about Larry Bird, who managed to keep the Chief happy and McHale happy and Dennis Johnson happy and all of his cohorts happy by sharing the basketball with them and making the big shots when they were necessary. Want to talk about the greats of all time? Start there. Don't start with his stats. Don't start with this nonsense of this is the ratio of one-on-one stuff when he scores the basketball. I want to hear about it. Giannis cannot be the best player in the NBA when he hasn't learned how to shoot a three-point shot yet, and he's a guard and handles the ball. Sorry. Can't call him the greatest in the league. Now, Kawhi Leonard, okay. Kawhi Leonard won with the Spurs. He won with the Raptors, and he played well. Tremendous. I have no complaints. Hardworking guy, has earned his stripes. LeBron is no longer the greatest player in the game. I still take him on the floor. The Lakers found out, by the way, that Kyle Kuzma is the third one of their players to suffer a foot fracture, and he is gone until the regular season. The Lakers are swimming in dangerous shark-infested waters right now, and 3 guys with foot fractures? It's almost like somebody doesn't like Jeannie Buss.
Not to name names.
However, I'm not God. I'm cod. And there's something fishy about that. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into this edition of Moohead Radio. I'm back again, by God, on the halftime and postgame show on Sunday. And you know you're going to see me and you're going to go, ah. It's like, him again. He's,
Again? He's on again?
I'll be on StreamYard, not on Zoom, so I won't freeze up. Party time, excellent. And and you'll have the opportunity to make comments, and I'll put them up on the screen like I do in StreamYard. And everybody will get their say. And yeah, join me at halftime and postgame. We'll have a good time. I promise. I'll make it fun. And this is what the game. Yeah, it's like the nurse. This shot isn't going to hurt at all, but you're putting it into my eyeball. No, it's not going to hurt at all. All right, everybody. I'll see you again on Sunday at halftime. Until then, hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Good night.